I don't work in an office. I don't have co-workers, thank goodness.
Right, 5 minutes if you want to get a coffee or something.
Yay.
Yeah.
So what's the word with Quantum Eraser? Haven't heard of him. Actually, I heard him yesterday in Betty's Discord.
I sent him a message. I said, when Flat Earther, whatever his name is, what's his name? Earth Flattener, when he was doing his presentation, I sent him a message. I was like, yeah, you might want to check out the presentation Earth Flattener's doing about you. And, I don't know, several hours elapsed. Hi, Mike, how you doing? Hello? Somebody just join?
Looks like it.
It was that guy from yesterday, wasn't it?
He joined and then left again.
Okay, hopefully he'll rejoin. What the hell was I babbling about? Earth Flattener.
Hey, Quantum Eraser, he called you a few hours later?
Yeah, he sent me a message about, I don't know how many hours later it was, but quite a few hours later. I saw this morning, it just sent me a smiley face, like a laughing smiley emoji. So I don't think he was too upset about it.
Yeah, he was yesterday. I checked on the Discord and there was a bunch of people. It was Betty himself, Tweet, and a couple more ballers over there in the Discord. And I joined in and it was a very nice conversation. Pretty much it was mostly Quantum Eraser and Tweet. They were just chit-chatting around and it was pretty cool to listen to them.
But it can be okay sometimes.
Yeah, it was no yelling, no argument. It was just conversation. It was nice chit-chat.
Good morning, everyone.
Yo.
Hola.
Yeah, I don't have a word on. I don't have a position on this infighting. You know, flat Earth versus flat Earth. I mean, that's kind of has to be done behind closed doors or whatever, personal. Yeah. But if to bring a message to an audience is not the right way to do it. You know.
Why is Google Earth not giving me distance? What am I missing?
Even though I enjoy a lot when Anthony Riley and Arwin are pulling hairs for gravity. Boom.
Been a lot easier recently, though.
Check.
So wait a minute. I'm looking at Kolan to Pattaya. It's just under 5 miles, so there should be some curvature in there, right?
Not a lot.
No, but I don't know, what, a couple meters? A meter?
I don't think you'll notice it that easily.
I'll guarantee you can see beach to beach.
Just get a person stood on the beach and can you see them? If you can see them on the beach with a zoom telescope, then there's no curve.
Yeah.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and there's also a PayPal link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Sleeping Warrior, Music, Jose, Flat Earth Vegan Goy, Event Horizon, Eric, Chocolate Saiyan, Warren, and Arwin. Good to have you all.
Good morning.
Cheers, cheers.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I need to make a correction.
Sorry, I heard the word correction.
Yesterday, I said that you missed me out, and actually, when I listened back to it, you didn't miss me out. I misheard you, so let's just let the record state that Nathan did correctly acknowledge me, and I made a mistake.
Yeah, I'm read them off from right to left on the bottom of the Hangout, just as my eyes glance across the Hangout. Naturally, they go from you first. So I think it's because you begin with S, it just goes in alphabetical order. Hence Arwin being the first to get sniped, because he's got A. Unless someone else comes in with a lower letter structure, alphabetically speaking. Arwin tends to be the first to go.
I had to.
Well, Jose's here as a placeholder today. I cannot participate too much, so if somebody want to join, somebody here in the panel, let me know and I'll drop out.
Yeah,
just here as a...
I'd like to see somebody.
Indeed. If you do want to join, we have got a full panel, so please just let us know in the chat, and we will make a gap for you if you'd like to debate the shape of the Earth. Any signs of curvature on that note?
No evidence of curvature.
No.
Has there been no videos to debunk? Nothing? Seriously, nobody's presenting any evidence of curvature?
No, there's just a tumbleweed from the Miles Delia Davis camp, based on his video that he released the other day, and they just don't like addressing the fact that Miles lied in his video about what our position is to try and bolster his own position. They just ignore it, and I just think it's nonsense. It's like, how can you just ignore the fact that he's lied about something specifically in his video to make his own position look stronger? Not on, boys and girls.
Oh dear. What about axial rotation? Any new videos? Oh, just had a phone drop. Any new videos with axial rotation at the heart of its demonstrations?
What's going on? Are we being kicked here?
I don't think so.
No.
I think it's just a mobile network drop.
Oh. It's just that Arwin's gone as well. He doesn't normally go.
That's true. Could be. We shall see. Might be a new start in order.
evidence.
We shall see.
What was your question, Nathan?
Axial rotation of the Earth-based variety.
Nil point. No evidence. If anybody thinks that the Earth's rotating and they think that the stars are the proof of it, then show us how them stars are antipode to each other from the observant of the perspective of the observer. So just saying that they're like opposite each other because one of them's north and the other one's south isn't proving that they're opposing points on a ball. Show us that antipode position.
Take that as a no. What about
No.
evidence of gas pressure without a container? There's a lot of people believing in the vacuum of space out there.
Definitely not.
Absolutely not.
No? Anyone? Anyone?
Yeah, me. Hold on. Pressure gradients. That's the first. The ISS is taking live footage 24/7. Satellites, communication. So that means that there's a vacuum of space out there. Boom.
We see him trolling. He hates it. You're obviously trolling us there, right? Have you just been making that shit up?
The argument. Okay, well, gas pressure gradient also requires there to be a container. So you can't have a gas pressure gradient without a container. If you want to phrase it in that way, that's fine. The whole point of us asking the question about the very medium that the satellites you propose prove the medium we're asking about, that's why we're asking the question. How can you possibly have satellites in a vacuum of space if we're breathing gas pressure? Now, if that gas pressure is in a gradient, it doesn't change the question. In other words, it doesn't address the question. How do we have gas pressure without a container? These guys all believe in the vacuum of space, right? Why isn't the gas pressure we're all breathing dissipating into that vacuum at an exponentially fast rate? Anyone?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily trolling. I'm just trying to bring the points that they explain to me when I ask these questions. They say, you know this, and whatever. You have to defend these points. You have to present them and do honor and present them right. I wish I was more articulated and can regurgitate better the explanations, but I can't. I just propose the points they got.
So, do you know, I didn't realize that you were reading the points that they read back to you. Do you want to read back them again? I thought you were just taking
No. I'm not reading it. I'm just remembering from the things that I have spoken, that I have heard of them in all this time, because they talk about pressure gradients. They talk about the gravity is that holds the air. The ISS, they say definitely there's an ISS that transmit footage from up there. Satellites, for the phones, for the cable TV. So all this stuff, they say you have to have, there have to be a gas, a vacuum of space because all these vehicles are up there in the atmosphere and satellites and
Yeah,
shit like that.
that's the point, though. You have to have a vacuum of space, according to them, right? Prove that the things that they believe is happening up there are actually happening up there. Prove space.
Right. Prove that you can have gas pressure without a container, because in their space fantasy religion, they've got gas pressure here on Earth being held by the zero proof of gravity, zero scientific evidence.
Exactly.
I mean, that was going to be my next housekeeping question. What's the scientific evidence for gravity? Answer, zero, none, nada, nil, nothing. They don't have any. So they just assert another religious belief to try and get around the first problem, which is how do you have gas pressure? Well, you wouldn't. If there's a pressure differential as vast as is asserted, then we would have instantaneous loss of gas pressure here on this tiny little ball that apparently is travelling through a vast vacuum of space. Well, no, that's not possible. It's a second law of thermodynamics violation. Entropy's a bitch if you believe in the space religion of heliocentricity. It's nonsense. It's impossible. Saying that the satellites prove it, no, we're saying that's what disproves the satellites. Hello, Thomas. Hello. Earth to Thomas.
Flat Earth to Thomas.
Earth to Thomas.
What's happening?
Good to have you. Just rounding out a bit of housekeeping. So, any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Nil point.
No.
New guess, Thomas?
Have you got any evidence for that one?
I'll take that as a no. Maybe keeping stum till the end of housekeeping. We shall see. Any evidence of the R value? Earth radius, gentlemen. Last but not least.
Nope.
I think I missed one. I think I missed distance to the sun. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Distance to the sun, Nathan. There's no reflected pings. No credible evidence to support anything to do with anything of the planets that they tell us are up there.
Yeah,
All the
that's utter
evidence is
nonsense.
nonsense.
Utter nonsense.
The transit of Mars, of Venus, and all this stuff, because of the transit of the other celestial bodies, then you can extrapolate the distance to the sun. Therefore, you got the how do you call the astronomical unit? AU.
AU. AU.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because transit is actually the best answer they have, and you can actually do this yourself. It takes time and dedication, but you can watch and follow the transit of the other celestial bodies, and you can deduce the distance to the sun.
Yeah. Embarrassing.
I'm glad I'm not a lot of fun looking through a mess of ping data to me. Is it there? Is it here? Yeah, it's there. Just dial in a load of noise. I like your comparison with is it Sean Hufford? It's there. It's in the background noise. Can you see it?
Sean Hufford's just one of the biggest jokes out there. I was supposed to have a hangout with him the other day, and I got caught in a bit of traffic coming home, so I didn't get back in time. And when I did get home, I realised that he'd been online for like 90 minutes already, poisoning the well prior to me going on. And I'm like, what kind of... Aside from the fact that that's like the worst thing that you could possibly do to a guest that's coming on to challenge your belief system with the counter argument for one of your compadres, you've spent 90 minutes poisoning the well before I go on. I thought, I'm not fucking going on with you like that, you idiot.
Slack.
Definitely slack.
I'm bringing back that 80s term.
Yeah.
Slack. Properly slack.
Well, embarrassing. I'm glad I'm not a ball earther.
Yeah,
it's funny. I heard a really good reference to Aristophanes yesterday. You know Aristophanes, that bloke that put sticks in the ground and calculated the circumference of the Earth?
I know of him.
Do you know, I didn't realize the correlation, or not the correlation, the where he fits into the timeline. He was alive, apparently, according to history, he was alive about 150 years before Christ. Now, most people believe that Christ didn't exist because reasons. Now, whether you believe he existed or not, the fact that it's contested means that it's doubtful whether or not Jesus Christ even existed. I don't care if he did or didn't exist. My point is that if you're going to argue over one of the greatest names ever to have roamed a planet or not, why would you accept that Eratosthenes existed when there's no other references to this bloke other than within the pseudoscience known as heliocentrism? He's not cited from any other sources. He was a philosopher, not a scientist, and not a physicist. He was a philosopher. Him, Aristotle, Socrates, and Plato. They were all of the same mold. And to cite from this bloke called Eratosthenes, who was less known than Christ, 200 years before Christ, and then unless you're going to argue that Christ doesn't exist, you've got to accept the criticism that Eratosthenes probably didn't exist either. Because if you can't, if you guys or if anybody can't prove that Christ existed, and a lot of people accept that he probably did exist, whether he did or not is not my point. My point is that it shouldn't be gospel that Eratosthenes was just accepted that he existed. I mean, let's be honest. Can you name anybody in history that was known by the surname that was real? So I'm not talking about Madonna. Obviously, that's part of her name, but it's a surname kind of thing, and that's how she was known. I mean, who else is there? Sting. It's not his real name. It's a pseudonym for the performer that he was.
Plato.
Who else is there?
Shakespeare.
Inventor of the plate.
Yeah, well, he was known about William Shakespeare, right? He wasn't known as Shakespeare. He was known as William Shakespeare.
No, well, that apparently might have been a pseudonym as well. Most likely Francis Bacon, but no evidence.
Possibly. What did you say, Nathan?
Oh, sorry.
Nathan?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, what did you say?
Hey, Mark. What's happened to your channel?
I have a question for you guys. So, if you're dismissing all of this ancient knowledge and these
kick that
ancient
Mark
Greek
Doxy,
thinkers
it's a
like
troll.
Eratosthenes and Plato, what knowledge exists? What can you count on? What can you carry forward to the future? What is there to rely on?
Very little.
Any information at all?
Very
valid?
little. Very little. It's all been poisoned, it seems.
I think maybe we should worry about the now and not be so concerned with the future or the past.
So the now is what's poisoned.
Yeah, now
if the
it's
history is poisoned, and the now is poisoned, so there's nothing. You can rely on nothing.
So, Nathan,
Yeah.
Well, that's what I rely on.
What were
That's
you saying
right.
about names, Nathan?
I just said Plato and then joked and said he was the inventor of the plate.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, let's be honest. If people really doubt whether Christ existed, right, and I don't care if he did or didn't, why is it a gospel that Eratosthenes existed, right? No one's ever really challenged it, but I heard someone question it, and I thought, that's actually a really valid point. 200 years, 150 years before Christ, and it's just accepted that this bloke called Eratosthenes existed. Yeah, everybody
Doubting
challenges.
things isn't a valid point. Okay.
What do you mean it's
You
not
have
a
a valid point to make about him specifically. That's one thing. But doubting the existence of someone based on the fact that people doubt the existence of Jesus,
Okay,
I
that's
would
easy to
consider
solve.
that just a ridiculous statement.
Well, it's easy to solve. What primary source?
False equivalent?
What primary sources do you have for Eratosthenes?
Yeah. I don't. Hang on. I want to know why he thinks it's ridiculous.
I'm not arguing any primary sources or any of that. I'm saying, why are you even doubting it?
Why
Well,
am I
that's-
doubting that he existed?
I'm doubting that anybody would ever produce a primary source for him.
Well, you doubt everything, though.
Well,
So-
okay.
Why would you believe everything?
Yeah. What primary sources have you got for the
And
existence
then
of
you
this
would
character?
assume that I believe everything, which
No,
is
I'm
ridiculous.
just saying that.
Well, you believe in Jesus, who
so
was
far-
supposedly 2,000 years ago with no evidence.
Who said that I believe in Jesus? When did I
thought you were
say that?
saying-
You seem
I
very
thought you were
angry, you
saying-
guessed.
Say that,
What's the
no.
deal? Why are you so angry
Okay,
about this?
don't get your panties in a wad.
Yeah, why are you so
No.
angry about this?
I don't wear panties.
But you seem like you've got
You sure?
your shorts in a twist. You're very angry about this for some reason. I don't know what the big deal is.
No, you guys are all about feelings and emotions. I'm just talking about stuff.
Okay.
I don't know
Well,
what you're perceiving.
I doubt
in my tone.
its existence because it seems, from past experience, without even looking, that when people have come to me and said, "Do you think this person exists?" and I've gone, "Yeah," they've gone, "Go away and research the primary sources for that individual." You go away, try and find primary sources, and you very quickly fail and find that there's just secondary references, recent
Sure.
secondary references only, and you go, "Oh, that's a bit disappointing. The records only go back 300 years. That's shocking."
Such
in
is
fact.
history. That's history. Galileo. Did Galileo exist? Did Isaac Newton exist? Did Isaac Newton actually do the work on gravity that's claimed? Do you believe it or not?
There seems to be
Kennedy exist?
Well, there seems to be primary sources for Isaac Newton.
Kennedy information. What do you mean, like Kennedy, like JFK, John F. Kennedy?
Sorry, primary sources. So there are primary sources for Newton.
Yeah, there's more recent information. There are actually people alive that have like seen him or known him personally. So I mean, I guess there's a little bit more what I would call chain of custody, because that's what this is all about. This is about chain of custody of information.
I don't really know what that term means. Chain of custody? I don't understand that term.
Chain of custody is who is in possession of the facts. Like, let's say facts are disseminated 3,000 years ago, and then it turns into a rumor, and then people pass it word of mouth. Chain of custody in law enforcement is when you take a piece of evidence and then you put it in a bag and you mark it, and then it's documented where that is kept and who has access to it. And then when it's moved to another location, or when it's taken and checked out and taken to court to be used as evidence and then checked back into the property room, that's what they call chain of custody. So,
even though things magically disappear.
Well, of course, but I'm just saying, what's your chain of custody for your information? You guys are basically just saying nothing can be trusted. Eratosthenes didn't exist. Jesus didn't exist.
No.
Galileo.
Okay.
I don't think anyone's saying that.
Hold on, let me just ask a supplementary question. So,
we're doubting it.
Hold on a second. I just want to ask a question about it.
Or are we going to try to find proof to prove these people exist? Or are we just going to say, oh, there's a doubt, forget about him?
Yeah, okay, I get your point. I've got a question. So you said it's about the custody of the chain of custody of the evidence that comes to you. Well, if you're talking about a murder weapon, a knife, then that's a physical thing that has been involved in the crime. Well, in the analogy of Eratosthenes, what evidence is in the bag? What's in that little evidence bag? What have you got?
Right.
And I'm saying no primary sources. So what have you got in that evidence bag? And I would assert it's an empty bag.
Right, like the Bible. I agree. It's an empty bag. You have no chain of custody of any of the sources. I mean...
Sure, so loosely, now that you've pretty much used the short and swift analogy that Anthony used, we're all on the same page now.
Right, well, I was just trying to more well define something that seemed a little vague.
What do you mean seemed a little vague? How's about non-existent?
Well, it's a slippery slope. You start denying things and then dismissing them and moving on.
Hold on, we're obviously not on the same page. Sorry, Anthony. Hold on. I thought we were on the same page. Denying what? So what do you think is in the evidence bag?
Nothing.
So what are we denying exactly? What's the slippery slope of denial we're on if there's nothing in the bag to deny?
Everything. Because things clearly exist.
Sorry.
What you're doing
So what?
So
let's go back to the original question. So what is the primary? What's the primary source evidence for Eratosthenes?
I have no fucking idea.
Don't swear. Just because. Right. It seems like you want to take.
Well, there has to be a book or a teaching or some writing somewhere.
Shut up! I was in the middle of a
Greece
sentence.
Yeah,
I've listened to your waffle. Now shut up. Now my waffle comes. I've heard your waffle. You're just going to be repeating yourself. So. We're not denying anything, but you seem to want to accuse us of doing so. Why is that?
No, I'm defining the position that we all agree on.
Well, we're not denying anything. There's nothing to deny. That's our point.
Right. Nothing to deny.
Yeah, there's no evidence in the evidence bag for these people from 3,000, 2,000, 1,000 years ago.
Okay. We need some books to confirm our books.
Where does that leave us? Leaves us with now what you can like touch and pick up, read. Like, what if you read current information? What's the chain of custody of current information? I mean, you're talking it's so long ago, and we don't know like who wrote it.
We don't know. Why do you need to know things?
Oh yeah. So why are we even having this discussion, right?
Good point.
Yeah, I need to know things. Like I need to know a little bit about musical theory to be a musician.
Huh.
It's called application. You got to apply your knowledge.
You should tell that to these 2-year-olds that take up the piano with not even studying a book.
Really? So those are the only musicians that exist?
Is that what I said? Put words in my mouth?
No, but that's what you're essentially saying. No, tell this to a person who has.
You just made it. You just made a claim that to do music, you need to study music. You have to study music, and I deny that that's a valid claim.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you this: no person who plays a musical instrument has a lack of understanding of musical theory, whether they understand it consciously or not. If a person is able to create beautiful music on a musical instrument, they have an intrinsic understanding, and that can't be denied.
And you don't necessarily have to study that.
Well, an idiot savant,
have to study it.
An idiot savant is just an example of that. Their brain's already pre-wired in a way to sort of be able to do things that you might think would be impossible.
So you're proving my point. So you're proving my point. They don't have to study music theory to know music.
Well, of course you don't actually.
You made a statement. You made a statement that you have to study music theory
I do.
To be a musician.
I said I have to study music to understand it.
That's not what you said.
I need that. I need that information of understanding because I live in the real world where, like Mozart or Beethoven, would have to use musical theory to construct his music. We're not talking about a 2-year-old kid who can play piano. We're not talking about an idiot savant who can hear sounds and then recreate them like a mimic.
So can we go back to my point that you've challenged me on, which we've not had closure on? I said that it's a valid criticism to suggest that Eratosthenes may not actually have existed, yet everybody accepts that he existed. But he was 150 years or so before Christ, and Christ is challenged on whether he existed. And I think
I agree with you.
Hang on. I think it's a little bit unfair for you to challenge me when most people are happy to, especially heliocentric guys like yourself, are happy to challenge that Christ even existed. But I think it's a little bit hypocritical for you to use that against me when I question if somebody is infamous or famous as Eratosthenes existed. So what gives?
I don't know. I think I take it all with a grain of salt. I mean, really? I don't believe any more in Eratosthenes, Galileo, Isaac Newton, or Jesus Christ, fucking Moses. I don't believe in any of it any more than any other of it.
But wasn't that your criticism of me that I didn't believe?
No, it's just a slippery slope to start just dismissing things. I mean, I'm not trying to pin anybody down. It's not a personal problem. I'm just saying, if we like.
Oh, we're here again.
Sorry,
Anthony. I've got to do it again. I've got to do it again. I'm really sorry. I've got to interrupt. So, what are we dismissing exactly?
Just whatever. Like,
not whatever.
Well,
specifically.
There's no reason to believe.
Don't hand wave dismiss my question. What specifically are we dismissing when you say we are dismissing stuff and it's a slippery slope? Specifically, what are we dismissing? What's in the empty evidence bag? You remember this conversation from 5 minutes ago?
You're dismissing something that could possibly exist. You're dismissing Eratosthenes,
sorry,
the legend.
An argument from ignorance won't work here. So I'm not concerned with the possibility of things that might exist. That doesn't concern me. I'm talking about an empty evidence bag, and you're talking about me dismissing things that might turn up in the future. No, I don't have to suddenly worry about the heliocentric priests of old and whether or not we might find proof of them when I'm staring at an empty evidence bag. I'm not dismissing anything. There's nothing to dismiss. That's the point.
You're speculating. You're speculating wildly.
We're requesting evidence.
Oh my God. What are we speculating about now? Here we go. He's changed it for slippery slope of dismissing nothing to what are we speculating about now?
Whether or not Eratosthenes is a real person.
Sorry, what are we speculating about? What are we speculating about?
We do have
the existence, whether or not people in history existed based on their legend.
We're not speculating. We're requesting evidence that these guys are actually true rather than fictional characters.
Speculation.
To support a position that might not actually be true.
No, hold on. You don't understand. If you are to... Sorry, can I just get a word in?
Did I ever say it was
Can I just get a word in while you just continue to object? So
you guys are funny. You're inferring that I have some personal problems that I don't have.
I'm not inferring anything.
Like you started off by criticizing me for questioning whether he existed, right? But then you just said yourself that you question that any of these people existed. I point out the hypocrisy.
But I don't simply dismiss it.
You're the one challenging me for being whatever, and I'm like, hang on a minute, what gives with this guy?
You guys are in dismissal mode. You just
No.
miss everything.
So he come in and said nothing really.
Let me just try and explain it to you.
Okay, let's forget about
Listen. That's why we ask for something specific. Primary source evidence.
Push you away.
Primary source of evidence. Photographs.
Right. So we'd like to know what primary source evidence there is for the existence of this type of character.
Can I ask you a question? Do you think Christ existed?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I have no idea, to be honest with you.
You believe in a ball, though, right? Wasn't created, exploded from nothing.
I'm not here to make any claims, and I'm not here to answer your questions.
Oh, well, what are you here for?
Why are you here then? What, sorry, why are you here exactly?
Turn this into a personal problem with feeling.
It's not personal, man.
Nothing's personal yet. So why are you here if you're not here to answer questions or make assertions? What are you here for?
Listen to you giggling like the little peanut gallery.
So what are you here for again if you're not here to answer any questions?
So you want to clown on me? I'm just here to experience this. It's so fascinating.
Experience.
Hey, show me.
Experience what?
I'm here to experience flat Earth. It's
No,
fascinating.
you made assertions that we're
Go
denying.
outside and experience the flat Earth, mate. It's everywhere.
It's nonsense.
No,
You're saying
it's
you're not making
here.
assertions.
It's
You've
the
made
only
loads of
place I can get it.
assertions.
Everywhere
We're on a
else
slippery slope. We're
is
denying evidence. We're speculating.
Reality,
No,
it just
we're asking for what
exists as
primary
it is,
source.
and I
While
don't care
you
if it's
talk
flat, round, or
non-stop
square, triangular.
because you are a
This
triggered
or flat.
asshole. So you can't shut your mouth. You're not here to experience anything. You're here to rumpus.
He's triggered.
No, you're
Intellectual
talking non-stop
has
while other
stopped.
people talk.
It's going to start calling me names now.
No,
I don't want to call you names.
I'm pointing out that every time someone starts a sentence, you continue to
What
talk.
are you talking about? I'm just sitting here observing and listening and asking a couple questions. and stuff.
You're not. You're criticizing
trying
me
to
for
pin me down like
criticizing
I'm
me for denying
claiming
that
a
Aristophanes
position
existed.
that opposes yours.
triggered
or
baller
I'm
asshole.
stupid.
You began by criticizing me for questioning whether or not Aristophanes existed. And then you admitted that you didn't believe that he existed yourself, and none of these characters did. And then when I point out the hypocrisy of that statement, then you make it into some kind of personal crusade. And I'm like, I'm not being personal.
There's nothing personal here, mate.
Really? So yeah. So let's continue the discussion. So what can be believed in? What?
Stuff that we can prove to be true.
Sorry, it's not about
Right.
believing it. That's the
Very
point. The point is that we are looking for primary source evidence as opposed to belief.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
So your pictures of a boat going over the horizon are better than mine, or something?
Sorry,
'Cause that's really what this
sorry,
is about.
sorry, excuse me. That's not the subject, is it?
Well, I'm
Talking
changing it
about
a
the
little bit.
existence-
I'm talking
Sorry,
about,
we're talking
validity of
about-
evidence, the
Yeah,
validity
we
of
are
words
talking. I'm trying to
people
bring you back
think.
online as you've just delivered a red herring. So
I
no.
don't talk about Eric
Yeah,
Destiny
are you going to
anymore.
talk
You guys
non-stop
wanna talk
again?
about
Is this going to be
Eric
the
Destiny
tactic? Is it you talk non-stop while I talk? No. So we were talking about a character in history that's asserted as part of the heliocentric belief. Now you're distracting away and talking about boats going over the horizon. We're talking about a character's
You guys don't
existence.
make claims.
Here he goes again.
You say your
Here he goes
Aristophanes is
again. He
asserted
can't keep
as
his mouth
evidence.
shut long enough. This isn't you listening and observing now, is it? It's you talking over me, isn't it, Sunshine? I thought you were listening and observing. Listen up. We're not talking about boats. We're talking about the existence of a character. That there is
I'm
no...
not here to get
Oh, here he goes
lectured by
again.
you, bro.
Oh, here he goes again. We're talking about
I'm not
the
here to be
existence...
lectured by you.
Clearly very
Quit
triggered by
calling
this.
To learn then,
Clearly,
mate.
the rumpus button is required, so I don't have to talk loudly. So, while this asshole talks all over me, I'll calm down a little bit, let him rumpus the hangout so they can't hear me, and I'll explain my point, or attempt to, for the 5th time. So, we're talking about the existence of a character, and whether or not there is any primary source information for it. That's it. Not trying to assess anything, not trying to cast aspersions on him, not deny his existence. Simply ask those who assert that he definitely did exist, provide primary source evidence for him. That's it.
So nobody's got anything to say now because there's no evidence for anything ever.
So that's
Oh
why
my
we're
goodness.
asking the question, dude.
Okay, one of you guys make a claim and prove it.
Because we don't need to make the claim. The claim's already there for us to question.
What claim? Oh, that's right.
We live in a ball.
You don't have to prove anything. You just tear everything down and then nothing exists.
No, we just
Sorry.
tear everything down and see what can be proven and what's not provable. And a lot of
And
your
that's what I'm
beliefs are not
saying.
actually
Where does that
provable.
leave you? Because you end up nowhere with nothing.
And leads you to the truth if you find out the right answers, doesn't it?
That's a shame. So what you're saying is you'd rather cling on to religious beliefs than have nothing.
Not at all.
Well,
I'm just
who
saying
cares?
you need to go somewhere.
Who cares?
You need to go
Okay,
somewhere.
I accept what you're saying. At the end, you've got nothing but a load of beliefs that are left shattered on the ground. So what?
Right. So where do you go from there? Is my question.
Yeah, no. That's my question to you. You're saying if... Oh, God, here he goes again. So, yeah, that's correct. You end up with a load of shattered beliefs. So what?
How do you redefine that or define that paradigm that's shattered? It's
Who
gone.
cares? That's your problem. That's your problem, angry man. You're the answer. Not like this, being an angry man who talks over everybody and claims that he's just observing. No, you just deal with it. Some people don't deal with it very well, like you. You seem to be struggling with it. That's fine.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, of course you don't.
That's because you can't hold a conversation and listen.
Yeah,
isn't it?
To be very triggered.
You guys are so fucking
nobody
hostile.
really wants.
Yeah, now he's swearing. Let's use the rumpus button while he swears himself out. Hopefully he'll tucker himself out while the hangout can't hear a word I say. This is somebody very triggered. Realising slowly, very, very, very slowly, that the world they live in isn't as they thought it was, and that they've been fed a pack of lies.
Let me just say what happened in the background then, Nathan. He accused us of being very hostile to him, right? No one's raising the voice to him at all. All we're objecting to is the criticism that you gave me for questioning whether or not Aristophanes should be considered to be a real character or not, when we haven't got any evidence to prove that he's true, given that he's like 200 years before Christ. And I don't think that's an unreasonable request, but you attacked me for it, saying that I shouldn't really be questioning it. Why should I be questioning it? The answer is because most people don't accept that Christ existed, yet everyone seems to question it. But no one's allowed to question Aristophanes. I call foul for that. I don't think that's fair.
And I mean, no one's allowed to question that. You can question anything you want. And you're supposed to. That's how science goes forward. I mean,
no one's
amateur scientists, professional scientists, you put your shit out there and other people attack it or try to build on it and make it better, try to prove it or disprove it.
Where's the science for your globe?
Sorry, this isn't about science.
Just like flat Earth needs to go through that same process. You guys understand
we're not talking
right?
about
Whether
science.
you do it or real science does or whatever.
Sorry, we're not talking about science. Hello?
It has to be.
Is he just going to carry on waffling indefinitely about this? We're not talking about science. We're talking about the historic account of a character. It's not about testing it and repeating it and observing it and debunking it and falsifying. Shut up, triggered man. I understand this is difficult for you. We're not talking science. We're talking history.
I agree with you. I'm not triggered. Just relax.
Thomas, have you got children in school?
I do not.
If you did, would you like object if there was an opposing view presented against the ball that we're told that we live on?
Not at all.
Cool.
And you wouldn't object to their vaccinations, obviously, either.
Yeah, I think I have a problem with some vaccinations, bro. I really do.
Fair enough.
Wow. Cool.
Depends on the number of them and the type, too. I mean, you got to do some research. But yeah, right now there's like 16 or 17 different actual individual things that they're doing. And there's something like 150 different antigens that are delivered in that series. When we were kids, maybe we got 30 different antigens. So there's a huge thing going on with vaccines, and it's not well understood.
So you're being lied to about certain things, but the ball, that you're not being lied about that.
Well, there's things that you can understand. See, astronomy is not that hard to understand, and astronomy can be leveraged to understand the shape of the Earth.
Why?
So looking at the stars can determine the shape of the Earth?
Yeah, why?
I'm not going to go into it. I don't want to have this conversation with you guys. Because you guys
I'd like to know.
Have a personal attacks. And
okay, hold on. Let me just give you this opportunity. You just hold on. Just calm down. Let me get a sentence in. No, he's not going to. You need to tucker yourself out.
Star Trails alone.
Yeah, it does. I'll let him tucker himself out.
I'm tuckered out.
Excellent. So you've just thrown out an assertion that astronomy is easy to understand and you can derive the
Because
shape
you
of
can
the
look
Earth
at
from
the
it.
sky.
Oh, here he goes again. So that's your assertion. Now, we are asking why you would make such an assertion. If you don't know or can't justify it, I will.
Can you look at the sky, Nathan? Are you capable of looking up at the sky?
Sorry, I didn't make that out. Say again. Say again.
Because that's all there is. That's all you can do.
I didn't hear what you said. Did you give me a justified reason for why the
fucking sky? That's all you can do.
Oh, you're saying that the Mayans believed that the Earth was a ball?
Hold on. I want to get closure on this point, Goy. Sorry to interrupt you. So you've thrown out an assertion the lights in the sky can prove the shape of the Earth. We've asked you why. And you've said, I don't want to go there. Well, if you don't want to go there, I'll conclude that point for you. And I'm giving you an opportunity to conclude that point yourself.
Astronomy, bro.
Oh, good. Astronomy, bro.
No. Event Horizon, can you let him answer? Or fail to answer?
There's what we have is called inference, too. You guys use inference. You look at something, you look at a tiny spot on something, no matter what shape it is, and you will infer that that's what shape it is.
Yeah,
if I draw a circle on my carpet, is my carpet round?
Hold on. God.
If you draw a circle on your carpet...
Jesus wept. Event Horizon, please, can I just have a simple one-to-one discussion without you also rumpusing me? Thanks. So, I still don't see the connection. You've got lights in the sky and you're saying you can draw inference. Well, yeah, and...
Well, there you go.
Not there you go. I still don't see any connection between the lights in the sky and the ground beneath my feet. Your there you go doesn't really do it for me. Maybe you could expand on your there you go explanation, which is woefully lacking.
Yeah, it's not worth it. It's like to sit here and...
No, that's where I shut you up. No. What they will do, the globe-head religious zealots, is assume the Earth is a sphere. That's what you will do when you look up at your twinkly lights in the sky, religious zealotard, retard, idiot. It's not worth it because you know that I'll rip you a new one based on your begging the question fallacy and your presumption of an Earth radius. Right?
Right. So...
Yeah, so shut your mouth. Don't ever even try and throw out that crap here that you can look at your twinkly little lights in the sky and draw the conclusion that you're standing on a sphere, because I'll get you to qualify it with your there you go, and then everybody will laugh at you for your stupidity and your religious zealotry, which is all you've got. You would assume you're on a sphere when looking at those twinkly little lights now, wouldn't you?
Alive the last couple of days. And
it looks like he's asking to get booted from the channel, I think, with this profanity.
That's so good. No, man, I like this kind of reaction. I point out that he throws out an assertion that we live on a sphere based on the twinkly lights in the sky, and when I ask him to qualify it, he says, there you go. That's his explanation. Not, I will assume we're on a sphere. I'll beg the question and presume we've got a radius. No. I'll walk off into the sunset. Bye-bye. See you later, religious zealot.
Mate, you've got toilet paper stuck to your shoe.
Yeah, that was trigger big time.
You need to clean up your house. It's a big mess there. Why don't you take some time off and organize that place? Looks like that table's about to fall apart back there. All those boxes everywhere. What a mess.
So let me see. The Mayans have P900s and telescopes. Oh no, really? That's why they had to look at the sky.
In conclusion,
I got
if you want to look at the twinkly lights,
we can look at shit in the distance, you know.
You're gonna assume You're gonna do that religious zealotard thing that they all do, my friend, which is assume Earth radius. Ah, he's tuckered out now. Shame. Fun.
Did he run away?
I don't know. He's still here. I don't think he's realised he's on mute, and I don't think he knows how to take himself off. Interesting interaction there. So
Yeah,
I'll go back to my original assertion.
I was just about to do exactly that, get you back on track with your original assertion about Aristophanes.
Yeah, I think that if people are realistically, and let's be honest, they all do, everybody's just got a view on whether or not Christ existed, right? Rightly or wrongly, whether he did or whether he didn't, people do question it. So if it's okay to question whether or not Christ existed, it's got to be okay that we question whether or not Aristophanes existed. And the problem that you've got is Christ is referenced throughout the Mediterranean and the Arabic countries by many people. And there's a lot of records of independent records of this guy called Christ. But Aristophanes doesn't get mentioned anywhere apart from heliocentricity. I find that a little bit odd.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Chris, what do you think? Aristophanes, is it fair to question whether he existed, or should it just be given that he did exist and we're silly to question it?
Very fair. Especially when that is a huge premise of the ball.
I reckon, Nathan, on the basis of the first result on Google you get when you search for Aristophanes, it actually says that we don't know what he looked like. That's almost like one of those embedded confessions, in that they're almost admitting that they don't actually think that he existed, maybe. It depends on how you interpret it, but all right, I'm being slack with the interpretation, but I think we could probably add that to housekeeping. Is there any evidence of Aristophanes? Because it's a valid question. If you're going to question Christ, it's damn fair that we question whether Aristophanes even existed.
I mean, he is one of their priests, let's be honest. He's like a deity almost, isn't he? What would you call him? Like one of the angels or something in the Bible. I don't know how you'd categorize him, but...
A protagonist.
Protagonist, yeah.
Did we ever figure out how he took the angle measurements from, or the shadow measurements from 2 different locations 500 miles away or whatever?
Yeah, he used the theodolite, of course.
Cell phone communications, bro.
A theodolite? I don't understand. How would that have... How would he have done that?
I'm joking.
Oh, sorry.
In a little segue, when we say spinning ball Earth or spinning globe, please don't say spinning because the ballers get insulted. You're disrespecting them. It's not spinning. The Earth is not spinning. It's rotating or whatever another word they use.
Hang on. Why are they playing the victim card with spinning?
All right. No, I just remembered that because I think yesterday I was talking about spinning ball. And they said, like, no, we're going to let it slide, but it's not spinning. And they got triggered. They got angry because I call it spinning. And it's not spinning. It's 1 revolution per day, 15 degrees per hour. So that's
what you're saying is they'd prefer we said it's a globe and it has an axial rotation. I don't care. They're spinning fantasy ball in space is what I'll refer to it as.
And, do you know, I call it a testicle because it's an oblate spheroid pear-shaped thing, whatever that shape actually is. And when you look at the so-called the gravity map thing, the 3-dimensional thing, it looks like a testicle. And it's like, I know it's not technically what they're saying it is, what I'm comparing it to, but whatever it is, right? It's not supposed to be a sphere, and it's not an oblate spheroid. It's slightly chubby at the bottom, pear-shaped. Whatever that shape is, I mean, it's a testicle, right?
Anthony.
Hello.
I typed in Eratosthenes in Google, and it came up with some images.
Well, the first thing it says is Eratosthenes was an ancient Greek scientist born in the town of Cyrene in about 276 years before Christ. Cyrene, then a Greek city, is now the town of Shahat in Libya. Eratosthenes was educated in philosophy, not education, not science, not physics, philosophy, and mathematics in Athens. We do not know what he looked like. So I'm only telling you what it says. I don't know whether they do know or they don't know, but that's what it says.
Sure. I just don't want somebody to come on and say, "Oh, you're lying or wrong," because I mean, there are a couple images. There even looks like what looks like a statue of him or a bust.
So, are you telling me that it might be wrong on famousscientists.org? They say they don't know what he looked like, but are you telling me that they might be wrong? Oh my God! Not another contradiction in their model, is it?
Shouldn't be.
We need that song from Take That. Could it be magic now? Oh, my dogs are beginning to ask for dinner. This is the noise they make when it gets to that time of the day. You've got an hour to go, boys and girls.
We don't know take that in America.
Hey, I have a question for Nathan. I'm sure this has been asked a million times. What's that in the intro? What's that? Is that from a movie?
Oh, what a day!
Mad Max.
It's Mad Max.
Oh, the new one?
Yeah, a new one.
Oh, okay. I only saw that once a long time ago.
Hold on. You saw that new Mad Max a long time ago? That was yesterday, man. I mean, all Mad Max, the original with Mel Gibson, that's a little while ago, you know.
Well, yeah, the one that came out with the I forget his name, Tom Hardy. It's been like 5 years, 4 years.
It was yesterday, yeah. 20 years ago was yesterday.
Yeah.
I graduated high school like 2 weeks ago, and that was in '92.
Yeah, it seems like that, huh? Memories are close by.
Yeah, what was even worse is when I was on that course recently, I was we were talking about like how we ended up on this particular course, and I said that I finished my degree back some nearly 20 years ago now, and somebody said to me, "What year did you finish?" So a little bit of quick arithmetic, and I worked out it was 2003, I think it was. And she said, 2003. She said, I was just finishing high school at that point. And I was like, I'd done my degree and started my working life at that point. So that made me feel really old, but it's gone fast that quick. It's gone by that fast. It feels like it was 2 years ago.
I got my degree in '86, but I was pretty late. It took 10 years to get through.
Shout out to Lottie says in the chat when he boycotted the boycott in the early Flat Earth Debate 100s. Boom.
So a couple of days ago, do y'all remember the talk on the Miles Davis video and picture?
Of course, we remember that.
Of the bridge and the mountain in the background. Well, I had a post on there, and I took some pictures of my house, and I showed it on here, and I posted it on his link. And of course, it's been trolled to hell. And Miles Davis replied a couple times, and I went back and forth with him. He says what I showed. He says no matter how far how far it would have gone back, he says it would have never gone below my little cleaning bottles, and I don't agree, but I asked him specifically, what can I do to disprove your picture, and he never told me. I told him I need requirements because I don't want to go out and do this, and then you tell me it's wrong, so I need specifics. And
they don't want to commit into what you need to do, and they want you to do it on your own so that they can just basically invent some angle of bullshit to try and discredit it. Well, constantly moving the goalposts, and they all do it. He's a lying sack of shit, though, that guy. One of the most disingenuous people out there, apart from the likes of...
Yeah, and the more I look at his picture, honestly, it looks like he's not at the same elevation, or it looks like it's angled up. It doesn't look like he's at 210 meters, the same height as the very top of the pole. It almost looks like a optical illusion or something.
Yeah, that is exactly what I thought, and I didn't want to say that because, I've got no reason to suggest that it might not, other than it just doesn't look right.
Shout out to Warren for the super chat. What's that? For new strings for the banjo globers. Love it. Thank you very much, Warren.
So, have we lost Thomas now? Yeah, he's gone, hasn't he? I guess he rage quit, I guess. Does that count as a rage quit?
Well, giving the bird to the camera and then disappearing after walking off into the background with his camera still on, then coming back and disconnecting. Yeah, I'd call that a rage quit.
Nathan, I think you need to consider putting Aristophanes in the housekeeping. I know it's a really short answer, like any evidence that Aristophanes really existed. Because let's be honest, right? If they're going to challenge Christ, whether he existed or not, it's fair that we should challenge whether Aristophanes did, because he is their Christ.
Well, if we're going to do that, then we need to put in the housekeeping any evidence that Jesus existed, and then we'll have people screaming in the chat.
That's timing. That's timing. I've literally just named the title of this show, Aristophanes versus Jesus.
You should put Aristophanes 0, Jesus 1. How to be a baller. Thank God I don't have to accept that Starman nonsense.
Eric wants to come back in. I'm going to go ahead and drop and let Eric back in.
Cool.
No, I can drop if you want to. I guess not.
We lose half the panel. Oh yeah, Eric's contacting me on
Flatten,
Skype.
what's going on, man?
What, man? Home with the kids.
Cool.
Chocolate, is the Earth a globe because it looks flat, and is it spinning because you don't feel any movement?
Of course.
Okay, thank you.
That all makes sense.
So they say.
Yes.
Utterly ridiculous.
And don't trust your senses, remember. Never,
Yes,
ever.
Just like Neil deGrasse Tyson instead. He'll put you right.
Eric won't get back here. I think he was sniped the same time Arwen in the music when he was sniped, I think.
Oh, they were sniped.
I got sniped. I didn't realise that.
That's
Obviously, it wasn't the real. What's his name? Mark Doxey.
Ah, so that was Mark Doxey Sock.
Yeah, I kicked out the Mark Doxey once I realised that 2 of them had gone, and then by the time once he'd been removed, there were 4 gone. And I mean, I didn't think that it wasn't Mark Doxey, but even though I know that his channel appears to have gone, like you, I thought it was the real guy.
Well, what is that saying that Neil deGrasse said? The universe doesn't have to make sense to you, whether you know or not, something like that. What was it?
Hey, Thomas.
He says that's the thing with science. It doesn't matter whether you disagree with it or not.
Oh, Thomas has dropped. Maybe join to take his sweet revenge in the back chat. We shall see. Show's only got about 10 minutes left, so.
Tra-la-la.
5 minutes if
Starman.
Yeah, 5 minutes left.
You got to ask whether or not Starman is still doing his thing. I don't know. What's the latest story on Starman? Has he crash landed or is he still up there or what?
I don't keep up with that kind of
I
garbage.
think they say he's still moving, like flying.
Right.
Broadcasting a high fidelity, high definition picture back to Earth, right?
Say again, Nathan.
He's beaming a high definition picture back to Earth.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure what the current position is with him. I don't know whether wasn't he meant to crash land into Mars or something?
Oh, I don't know. Whatever the CGI renderings team can come up with, I guess.
I reckon we should tell the story about how we learnt about the obfuscation tactics of the ballers with Hank Hill and the Stars. Because that's a really pivotal moment in this show's history, and I think it's worth reminding people that might not know the story why it is that we attack these ballers the way we do. What do you think, Nathan?
Yeah, I mean, that's down to you basically coming to me and showing me an edit that you'd spent, I don't know, 3 hours on, where Hank Hill had pointed out or asked the question about the inverse square law and whether or not that should actually permit us to be able to see any of the stars. That conversation was obfuscated to the point where the actual question, when it got asked about the distance to the sun, was bulldozed. And then about an hour later, this is when the shows were 2 hours long, without a break, Paper Explanator disclaimed it. He was like, well, we have to assume the distance to the sun, or we have to assume the sun is 93 million miles away. I forget how he phrased it.
Well, he actually did that right at the very beginning, like Rumpus does. He gets the hard admission in straight away, and then has the conversation, and then obfuscated it. And I said, well, why did Hank had him on the ropes then? Why did the point get lost? And the answer was because we didn't realize that the point was being deliberately lost. And I said to Nathan, let's not do that in the future. Let's get points closed, like we just had them with Aristophanes. And I said, let's go back to the point that I asked, which was, if people accept Christ or question Christ, it's only fair that we question your Christ. Because that point got lost with Hank. And Hank, he had him on the ropes, but Hank didn't realize he got obfuscated. But I did realize, and I wondered why it was allowed, or why was it not stopped, whichever. And I said, let's not do that anymore. When these ballers are on the ropes, let's keep punching them and keep punching them, keep punching them. And unfortunately, the next guy we applied it to was Paul Voigt and his molten iron core nonsense. And what do you know? He's never been back in since, and you've never really seen anything of him. And that's why housekeeping exists, because of that. So it's like a gradual evolution of the show with the history of the show now. That's the reason why we asked the housekeeping question of the molten iron core, because that resulted from an obfuscation tactic from Hank Hill, Paul, Hank Hill and paper explanator on the stars, that really Hank Hill should have won, but for the fact that it got obfuscated. And then obviously Paul came in, and then we applied it against him and battered him and battered him and battered him, and now he doesn't come in anymore. And he's playing the oh, we're all on protest, and it's like, no, you just don't come in because you can't prove your nonsense. But it's just the evolution of the show, and it's, even though it's kind of like it's a bit unfair really to attack them so hard, it's still valid because these are the ones that are preaching the gospel. These are the modern day versions of Aristophanes, Plato, Socrates, and you guys believe it. All we're doing is asking for proof, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And basically, if your version of Jesus Christ is Aristophanes, then it's a fair question to ask. And if you have a problem with that, then you've got a problem with your own belief structure. And I can see why you guys get triggered so easily.
Yeah, and that guy did get very triggered very quickly, so we were having a perfectly civil conversation until one of his gods was questioned, and then it's a slippery slope of us denying evidence. We point out there is no evidence to deny here, we're just asking the question for if there is any that we should be considering, because as far as we can see, there's an empty evidence bag, and we're being told, don't deny the evidence. It's like, no, there's a disconnect here between us saying, it appears there's no primary source evidence for this character. So, if you are to assert he's real, then just provide us with some primary source evidence for him. No problem. That's it. Not denying anything. But that pisses somebody with a belief off, because they're like, no, there's certain things that shouldn't be questioned. That's one of them. It's like, well, what about Jesus? Well, that's obviously up for questioning because I don't believe in it. But my religion can't possibly be questioned. Those things are documented throughout history. It's a slippery slope. You guys denying, you're speculating. What do you mean we're speculating? Well, you're speculating whether or not he existed. No. Those who assert he exists need to provide some primary source evidence for it. What's unreasonable here? Is that not unreasonable? I don't think so.
Can I share something real fast before we round out?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. You get the last word.
So I was on the wiki of Eratosthenes, and I found this drawing or whatever talking about some of the stuff he did. So just looking at this, how many assumptions do we have?
Well, the assumption is that light travels in straight lines.
Right, there's
apparently
one.
When it's in the atmosphere, apparently it doesn't. What else is there? Assumption of the shape of the Earth being curved.
Right, that's two.
The assumption that it's got a radius to the center of the Earth.
That's three.
The assumption that the wells were dug in a perpendicular straight line down and they weren't wonky. I mean, let's be honest. No, I don't know whether the wells are deliberately. I know they should be perfectly straight, like, perpendicular to the center of the Earth. But it wouldn't surprise me if over time, if they're like hundreds of years old, if they've moved a little bit with tectonic plate movements and whatnot. So
well, those two assumptions are wrapped up in and of each other, aren't they? Because you're assuming that one well is pointing to the center of the Earth at one angle, and the other one's pointing to the center of the Earth at the other angle. So they're not both running parallel. They're both not just digging down and both exactly the same. If they were to be assumed perfectly plumb, what they're assuming is they're moving at an angle towards the center of the Earth, right? No, that's a pretty big assumption of, the R value rears its head again. What do you know?
What we need a rendition of, that song, Jesus Christ, Superstar. Well, we need one for Aristophanes, Superstar. We need to so Hyena, if he's out there listening, we need a version of something to do with Aristophanes being Jesus Christ.
Indeed. And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible, and of course a massive thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. If you hated the show, then you know exactly what to do, but if you liked it, maybe consider sharing it with a friend, or subscribing if you've not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Dun-dun-dun.
Yeah,
Nah. Didn't realise that's what you were doing. I thought you were just like, spitballing your own views. I didn't realise they were actually.
No.
Were you talking to Jose?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that 30 seconds or whatever it is when the intro runs out, where presumably it's like the background of a news show where they dim the lights and the two hosts stack their papers and just have a little chat amongst themselves while their mics are down. That's you guys in the background. So I come in afterwards, I'm like, dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun, and I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you on about?
Yeah. It's bullshit. I think it's a really good point that if they're going to question Christ, and we're not allowed to question whether Aristophanes existed.
Oh, have I spelt it right?
Encapsulates the whole thing.
Who knows how to spell it? I've spelt it. I bet I've got it wrong. Aristophanes. Is that right?
No. E rat O and then Sthenes.
Eratosthenes, not Aristophanes.
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 Yeah.
So what have I written? Aristophanes. I've put
E-R-A-T.
Hold on. Oh no, it's too late as it's streamed complete. Oh, bugger. I'm gonna have to go into the video editing manager to do it. Annoying. Good job, I checked.
It's Eratosthenes, like tosser. Eratosthenes.
No, it's not like
sorry, can you spell it for me?
Look it up.
Oh, no one's going to spell it now. I'm actually needing it.
E-R-A-T-O-S-T-H-E-N-E-S.
E-R-A-T-O-S-T-H-E-N-E-S.
Correct.
How'd you spell Jesus? Mate, Jake.
Are you kidding?
Thank you. That was a good show.
Yeah, it was quiet. Pity that everyone got kicked, but shout out to Matt Doxey.
Yeah.
That one guy, he got triggered at the end, like, you fucking motherfucker, I'm gonna fuck you up, this and that, like, really bad.
I actually thought he was going to get his dick out, you know. In protest, I thought he was going to get his dick out. That's really what I thought he was going to do.
Well, you thought he was going to get his dick out on camera because I had his screen sharing?
Yeah, that's what I thought he was going to do. You know,
that would have been worthy of having the channel get a community strike for.
Would you even get a community strike for that? In front of all the feminists protesting in London.
Would you even get a community guideline strike for that though? Seriously,
in their face ever.
I'm sure there's biological programs on YouTube where they've got, you know, genitalia out on display. So would it actually get you a community guideline strike?
Yeah, it's porno. It's considered pornography.
Pornography is erect penises specifically.
Oh right, so flaccid penises might not be.
Unless he literally came on camera having been jerking off to our argument, which would would disturb me enough to shut the show down.
Yeah, let's not talk about that. That's awful.
I'd be like, right, that's it. I've had enough for today. Goodbye.
Well, I think you're skating on thin ice if you put dicks in your work, to be honest.
He was very annoyed about it all, though. I think it is literally... I'd never considered it, but it is like questioning their Jesus, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just never thought about it like that.
That's exactly what it is.
Because we just blasé, like, yeah, there's no primary source, it's probably a bollocks character. But now we've been, you and I especially, I don't know about anyone else on the panel, been saying this sort of stuff for a while. We're happily talking about it live. But I didn't expect that reaction. Did you, Anthony?
No, not really. But when you put it in the context, if it's all right for them to question Christ, and let's be honest, who cares whether he did or didn't, right? Unless you're really religious, most people wouldn't be offended if you did question it, because it is questionable, right? But if you try questioning Aristophanes and Plato and Socrates, how dare you?
Yeah. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, everything's up for grabs. When he was like, well, you can't just have all of your beliefs left around you, or however he put it, I was like, yeah, that's like day 2 flat earth for me. Oh my god, most of what I believe is just a belief. Don't really know anything. Oh my god, it's just a pack of lies. Everything. Exactly. Yeah, and then you start piecing it back together. Well, that's your problem, mate.
Do you know what's even more prominent about the Aristophanes sticks in the ground experiment thing.
What?
It's the fact that his reference point wasn't in meters or centimeters or units that we're familiar with. His reference that his unit of measurement was measured in something called stadia, and stadia has got different numerical values depending on where you look, and it's highly contentious what the unit of stadia actually means, because there's at least 6 different types of stade, according to what I'm reading now, with lengths ranging from about 150 meters to 210 meters. So regardless of whether or not he did exist or whatever, this unit of reference that he used called stadia, whatever that reference is highly, highly, highly contentious, and there's about 6 different interpretations of it. But of course, the effect of that would mean that the values that he's using to calculate the distance to the sun and all that, or the circumference of the Earth, them values are going to vary wildly based on the size of the stadia that he claims that he used. So it's like, did stadia even exist, or is this complete bullshit based on, they have to fill out some kind of bullshit, but make people believe it. So they give it a completely foreign language, so that nobody can validate whether it's true or not.
Yeah. But we've effectively called bollocks on it live now, Anthony, so...
I'll stand by it, though, because I don't think that there's any evidence...
no, I'm not for 1 second saying we shouldn't stand by it. I'm more than happy to put my stamp next to that.
Well, yeah, because how far back do you have to go, right? And if you're attacking their version of Christ, then doesn't that rip the heart out of their claim?
Yeah, but I didn't realise they'd take it that way, or that obviously a reference sample of one. So we got this dude who basically has reacted in such a way that it is like we are attacking their version of Jesus. But did you expect that? I did. I just thought they were going, oh, so what? It's just a story, and the story, is that's our version of our religious backstory.
Yeah, I think what we should do is use it and just pick on Rumpus next time he joins, and ask him to prove that his version of Christ, and we'll call it his version of Christ.
But it is,
and if he says, what do you mean?
It's like being in Comic-Con. Not that I've ever done one of those, but I would imagine going up to a Comic-Con fan, and then, if they're dressed as Wolverine, going, well, maybe the backstory isn't true. The origin story in comic number 3 isn't actually true because of X, Y, Z. That guy would want to slice your face with his Wolverine blades because his, backstory of his favourite character is being questioned. How dare you question the backstory of my favourite character?
Yeah.
Well, if it's a religious belief that's attached to that character, the reaction's 10 times worse. Makes me want to poke that little sore even more with more people.
Yeah.
So what do you reckon? What do you reckon? He's not real.
What do you think, Chocolate?
I wouldn't try to slice anybody for saying something like that.
No,
I don't care.
About the Aristophanes bit.
Yeah, I the same thing that you said before. Like, if people can question Jesus, why can't they question this guy? Who's to say this guy's any more real than Jesus was?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. And this guy was how many years before Jesus?
We should push Aristophanes to be their Messiah.
What do you reckon, P?
But he already kind of is. I mean, because as soon as they bring up sticks in the ground, I mean,
I know, but if we contextualize Aristophanes to be their god, then that really puts the emphasis and the importance on the claim being really important to the magnitude of their whole belief.
No.
They always go back to the Greek with sticks in the sand, don't they?
Always.
They always go back to him.
That's all they got.
And why is there no modern versions? Why is there no modern versions of these claims?
That's what we say. How is it 2018 and we're still going back to 2,000 years before Christ? Are you kidding me? And you're still holding on to that? Don't we have something that just measured the Earth's anything just like yesterday? What are all these satellites doing?
With that Canada observation.
No.
With that Canada observation that Jaron likes, that happens on one day of the year. It's to do with where the sun sets on that one day relative to the horizon that you're looking at. And it only does it one day. And if it's a clear day, you see it. If it's not a clear day, you fuck it. Right? It's done. but it only happens that one day of the year. That's the same as the Aristophanes stick in the ground thing, because that only happens that one particular day. Everyone knows that story, right? However, the importance of it is, well, if we should really be able to repeat that anywhere on Earth for that one day. You just got to get like a locate, but we should be able to repeat it. Like, even if you weren't in the same place, you should be able to find the day where the sun is directly over your head, and then find the place where somebody else has got the sun directly over their head. But not the fact that you shouldn't have to research it to work it out yourself. It should be it should be there. It should be like at Greenwich Mean Time, for example. You can go to the Greenwich, whatever it is, laboratory or whatever, and you can see the actual instrument that they measure time with. Yeah. I'll be back.
Yeah, woe betide anybody who attacks their Jesus.
Oh, yeah, sorry for jumping all over you earlier, Nathan. I didn't realise you were still talking.
It's all right. I just want to hammer globe heads.
Yeah, no, so do I. But I understand my place. So, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to rumpus you, mate. I just wanted to get a point.
Right. Just bugs me when they're like, "You're on a slippery slope of denial." What the fuck are you talking about? Not denying anything.
Exactly that. I like the way he didn't want to talk about Aristophanes and
slippery slope of denial. Meanwhile, that's exactly what they're doing.
Event, you muted.
Event, you muted yourself, I think, accidentally.
Oh dear, sorry guys. Yeah, no, when they start pointing to lights in the skies, that's it. I get turned on to that. I think that's hilarious. So yeah, when any baller says, "Oh, let's look at the lights in the skies," my ears prick up straight away.
I get annoyed by their annoyance, because it's not them that are justified in being annoyed by all this shit. It's us. You know, this stuff gets asserted, and when you pick it apart and show that it is fallacious and they still assert it, that really does make my blood boil. It's like, you should be in a position to be apologetic for this nonsense when it's shown to you. But they don't. They double down, they get angry, they swear, tell us that we're on a slippery slope of denial. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Nathan,
it's projection, a lot of it. Now projecting it back upon us.
Exactly.
What you should do, Nathan, is get a silhouette of a portrait of a bloke's head, you know, so it's got no face to it or whatever, it's just black. And then put in Aristophanes, and then from whatever and to whatever. And then like some kind of like rest in peace or something. Stick that in with all the photos that we have in the background, just so that we remember that their Messiah is Aristophanes. And when it pops up periodically, and it gives you like an aid memoir to the importance of that particular point, because I mean, let's be honest, I can't. When it was compared to Christ, that's when it hit me like a brick wall. It was like, fuck, that's their Messiah in the same. And everyone challenges Christ, and it's not seen as unacceptable, but challenging Aristophanes clearly seems to be. So just get some kind of bust with his name on it and the date before and after, and then put it in your slideshow so that we can see it regularly, and we can taunt them with it.
Moving on to question of history.
Is that the real George?
It won't be the real George.
Is that you, George?
Yes. Yes, this is me.
Hello, George.
I was just checking to see if Nummy Num was here.
No.
Not yet, anyway.
All right, carry on.
Have you got a view on whether we should be challenging Aristophanes or not, George?
Say what, Riley?
Do you have a view on whether or not we should be challenging whether Aristophanes existed or not?
I just tuned in. I don't know anything about what has been discussed previously. But you mean Aristophanes as a man, whether or not he actually lived?
Yeah, he lived about 200 years.
Yeah, I know. He's a Greek.
Yeah, 200 years before Christ, right? Everybody it seems fair that everybody can challenge whether or not Christ existed. But when we challenged whether or not Aristophanes existed, the guy on the show today went fucking ape shit.
Okay. Well, I didn't listen to the show, so I don't know what was discussed. But sure, you're within your rights to challenge whether or not any historical figures existed. I do believe he was a real man and lived, and I believe Christ was too. Christ is an important historical figure.
Oh, right, that's interesting. You believe that Christ did exist. What is your view? Are you religious, George, in any way?
No, I don't believe he was the son of God, but I do believe he was a man that roamed the earth, probably a good philosopher, a good man. But as far as being God, no, I don't believe that. But I do believe Christ is an important historical figure.
Fair enough. I've never heard anyone on your side say that before. That's interesting.
George is religious.
He is religious.
No.
He's a wonderful man of Aristophanes.
Hold on, I don't think that's fair, because most people in Britain have had a religious, to a degree, upbringing. You know, when I was a kid, got took to Sunday school, but I wouldn't call myself religious. But I get tarred as a religious tard all the time, and I'm sure George is no different to me, right? George, you're not that religious. You're not a fundamentalist, right?
No, I'm not.
Just normal.
No, I was
guy.
brought up in a Christian home as an Episcopalian. I went to Sunday school, and I've learned through the Bible, and but
that's just normal, though, isn't it? That's just standard fare.
I
that's
have
just
different
normal.
views on it.
Just normal.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we did back then. I mean, every family where, pretty much everyone in the community was good Christian families. You went to Sunday school, you went to church on Sundays. It was a thing you did. It was part of the culture.
Yeah, exactly. So when people are like, oh, you're religious, it's like, well, so what? Maybe you occasionally go to church on a Sunday. It doesn't make you some religious tard.
No, I think, Nathan, you misunderstood what we meant when we said religious. We didn't mean of following of any particular Christ-based religion. We meant religion as in the heliocentric model.
Oh, right. I thought we were specifically talking about Christianity in comparison to Jesus.
We were talking about being a son of, instead of being a son of God, George being the son of Aristophanes.
I see.
His religion is the globe.
Yeah. Come on, Nathan. You're a bit slow there, lad.
Well, I thought the conversation had diverged onto the Jesus side of it, but obviously we were still on the Aristophanes side of it, which is fair enough.
Yeah, but the short answer, Anthony, is yeah, I believe Aristophanes was a man. He did the things that have been recorded in the literature, and the same thing with Christ of having roamed the earth. I don't believe in the miracles that has been attributed to him, but he is a very important historical figure. I mean, that's undeniable.
Sure, but would it not surprise you to? Well, given that, all right, let me ask you this: can you think of anybody that's famous, that's real famous, that is known by just a surname? Like, for instance, Sting, right? But he's not a real person. That's a pseudonym. It's a stage name. Sting didn't actually exist. His pseudonym on stage did, but Sting himself isn't a real person, right? What else is there? Is there anybody, apart from maybe Jesus, who was known as Jesus Christ, but how many people are known just by surname only?
Oh, gosh, I'm sure there's plenty. I mean, just give me a moment here to think.
I don't see the weight of your question, really, Anthony.
Yeah, I'm not quite on the same page either.
Well, I'll give you an example. Michael Jackson is not known as Jackson. Elvis Presley is not known as Presley.
Oh, you mean as a single, as just a single name, like Cher or whatever?
How many people are there that are actually real? Like, and I don't mean stage names. Actually, were known by just their surname or just some other name. That's like, I don't think there's anybody.
You mean historically?
Yeah, somebody
Jesus
famous.
wasn't his surname.
Well, most people know him as Jesus Christ.
Not his surname, though, is it?
Well, whatever his name is. My point is that apart from like Jesus, and maybe I suppose you could include Plato, Socrates.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, Plato and Socrates.
Yeah, but again, you could
question. How about Aristotle, one of the greatest philosophers ever?
Yeah, greatest philosophers, right? Not science, not physics.
Well, there wasn't really physics in that sense back then. I mean, physics in terms of science is a rather new development in human history. I mean, science, in a sense, really didn't come into its own until about, what, 300 years ago or so. You know, the Greeks were real close to really having science. I mean, they were just inches away from discovering the calculus. They just got so caught up in their arguments. They had trouble conceiving large numbers and infinity. They just could not conceive of infinity. The largest thing in their language for large numbers was myriad, which was, you know, on the order of 10,000 or greater than 10,000. But they just could not conceive of how to sum to an infinity. And had they broken through that, we would have had the calculus 2,000 years ago. And who knows where human history would be today if we had those tools 2,000 years ago. It's just mind-boggling.
So, number one, that's not science, that's maths. But that aside,
yeah.
What actual primary source evidence is there for these types of individuals, Plato included? What's the primary?
Well, it's just the literature, you know, recorded history. The same thing like Bible. Bible's recorded history, is it not?
Sure, but in terms of give it me in round numbers. So, what would you say is the oldest source reference for Plato?
I really can't give you an answer on that. I'm not all that well versed in you know, literature.
I mean, I would be surprised if you'd find any reference that was beyond 400 years old for this character that's asserted to be.
Yeah, I think there are. I mean, I can't, you know, off the on the spot.
No, I totally understand. It's not reasonable for me to say, look, you know, go away and then come back in a week and say, look, right, I know there's a reference to this reference, but it's apparently in the Library of Alexandria or whatever. You know, I'm not asking you to come up with that on the spot, but I'm just saying I would, you know, challenge yourself maybe to try and find, number one, a primary source, which I guarantee you won't find, but then in lieu of that, see how far back you can find references to these particular characters, and I think you'll be shocked.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I haven't really done that personally. I would be surprised if I couldn't find something, you know, earlier than, say, 300-400 years. I know that, you know, there's also things on papyrus documents, you know, from Egypt. We have those sorts of things.
So they say,
and other scrolls, well, but I don't know. You know, I'm just saying. I'm just guessing. It would surprise me
because that's another good example.
But I'll look into it.
Yeah, well, that's a good example. So in terms of papyri that have been found in Egypt, you know, then you start looking into the validity of the discoveries. I mean, I don't want to lead you because it's a nice little rabbit hole to go down. Fun, you know, totally devoid of attachment to heliocentric belief in any way, shape, or form, but just an interesting rabbit hole.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, historical records is a fascinating area. I just have not been all that interested in pursuing it, but I might look into that a little bit.
I agree. For me, it held a limited fascination, but then occasionally someone will come along and challenge you on something that you just say about a particular individual, even if you're expressing someone else's narrative about that individual. And they'll go, well, what do you know about their existence to begin with? And you go, oh, well, that's historic, right? That's just accepted. And as soon as you say those words, you think to yourself, here we go. Why am I asserting this? And then you do a little digging and go, shit, there's not very much information beyond a couple of 100 years. And then you might find a couple that go beyond that by 50, 200, 300. You know, you're not going much further beyond that. And it just seems like there's a lot of fabrication going on. When you come to things like the Egyptian discoveries that are very recent. I mean, very recent in our history.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Egyptians did hide a lot of this stuff really rather well.
So we're told.
But, yeah, no, I agree. I mean, let's look at as far as Egyptian hieroglyphics. I mean, we could not decipher them until the Rosetta Stone. You're talking around, what was it, the early 1800s or mid 1800s that we finally were able to decipher the hieroglyphics.
There's accounts of caves with hieroglyphics in that get worn out as tourists go and look at them, so they reproduce them slightly down the road in a different cave so that the tourists can still appreciate them.
Well, that makes sense.
Well, but my point being that it's easy to replicate them, and the ones that were there originally seem to be fading away. They've managed to survive a couple of thousand years, but then suddenly a few tourists breathing on them means that they fade away and need to be replicated in a different cave. Doesn't that stink to you?
No, not in this. No, it depends. I mean, if you start opening up these caves where you can get moisture coming in when a cave is closed up, you have pretty stagnant, stale air, and the oxygen gets robbed after a while. So you don't have the sort of deterioration that you do when it's open to the atmosphere.
Sure.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me.
That I agree with, but the problem comes when there's a new cave opened with replicas in and tourists are shown them. Well, if at some point they just stop saying that that's a replica, maybe that was the case with the ones that are fading in the cave that they've just decided to seal off as being historically
Okay, I
important.
see your point.
There's nothing to say either way. The point being easy to replicate, easy to produce, even though it's claimed, well, how did they do this thousands of years ago? Well, they might have done it 100 years ago for all you know.
Yeah, Nathan. Well, I tell you, you can question all these things that way, and you just don't go anywhere. You don't. I mean, I can't prove or disprove that conjecture. Again, we have to take certain things on faith, in a sense that that these sorts of things didn't happen, but by forensic science in a way, examining these sorts of things and looking at the literature, the historical record, you kind of piece things together and what may or may not have occurred. But there's nothing in life that we can know for certain, I guess, other than your own existence.
You said forensics and then put the word science after it, and again, like with mathematics, it's not science, though, is it? You do establish things with certitude. You can establish cause.
I'm not exactly sure what you're getting at there, but the thing is, like, the tools of what we call the tools of science, forensic science. I mean, we've developed certain tools for measuring, for examining things that we can ascertain the authenticity of things.
Yeah, that would be an observation, though. For example, if somebody leaves a fingerprint and then you go and retrieve that fingerprint and compare it and contrast it to a suspect's fingerprint, that would be an observation. It wouldn't be science. It wouldn't be establishing a cause.
Well, no. I mean, you're using the tools of science.
No, you're not.
That have been established by science. I mean, why get hung up on the terms? I mean, it's a tool. It's a method for examination.
Yeah, you can call it an examination. That's fine. You can examine and compare a fingerprint, for example, or blood or anything else in forensic terms.
Yeah, we make measurements all the time. You take a tape rule to measure the length of the side of your home. I mean,
and that would be
you
maths.
don't call that necessarily science. It's a measurement.
That would be because it's called maths.
Well, I wouldn't.
Yeah, that would be because it's called maths. So if I'm measuring my house or comparing a fingerprint, I'd call that observation. I'd call it mathematics.
It comes under the term.
I personally, if I'm allowed to just finish my sentence for a second, I wouldn't call it science, but you would. That's my point.
No, I'm not calling science. It's mensuration.
Isn't it called forensic science?
Yeah, that's my point, P. Thanks.
Yeah, there's forensic science. Yeah.
No,
I mean,
not
we
science.
use the term science loosely a lot.
Yeah, here we go again. So that was my point. That was precisely my point. When we boil down forensic science, like looking at a fingerprint, you're having a little look at something, and you're comparing it to something else. That is not science. And then if you compare the swirls on the fingerprint and measure their swirliness, that would be a measurement of something. That would be mathematics, not science. But you want to attribute science to it because science does prove things. It proves cause. So when someone says, my forensic science proves things, well, no, it's not scientifically proving anything. But it's nice to use the word science because it makes it seem like it proves things.
Well, it does. I mean, it's derived from scientific investigation. It's a tool that we derive.
Forensic science means using the scientific method, applying the scientific method to the process of solving crimes.
Oh, really? So you believe that they're establishing cause and effect? Well, the cause of the crime would be the perpetrator of the crime. A fingerprint doesn't establish cause. If I am leaving my fingerprint in a bank moments before somebody comes and robs that bank, and they retrieve my fingerprint and analyse it and compare it to my fingerprint, that doesn't establish cause and never will. Didn't prove I robbed the bank. That's what science does. It proves cause and effect. After you've established what your effect that you're studying is. Well, forensic science isn't science, because if it was, it'd be establishing the cause of things. Well, if you can tell me what the independent variable for a bank robbery is, I'll laugh.
I think the problem is when George said that we use the term science loosely and then not realizing that that's our point.
Yeah, it's not a loose term, it's a very specific term.
If your fingerprint proves you were there,
when they want to make it sound like they're proving something.
It does prove something.
Say the science of something, like the science of forensic investigations, or whether the term science used in that sense as an adjective is describes a method of deduction, basically, of investigation, of eliminating.
I get it.
Now isolating variables so that you find, you get down to a cause in a sense, or
no, you don't.
Eliminate.
That's my bloody point, George. No, you hijack the term science because science establishes cause. Yeah? Your bloody forensics don't establish cause. Like my fingerprint example. You analyse it and you look at it and you compare it and you compare my fingerprint. Why are you rumpusing me? Why can't we have a civil conversation? So you've got your fingerprint and you've compared it and you've analysed it and you've done the maths of how swirly it is. And you've got a conclusive comparison. My fingerprint versus the bank vault's fingerprint, right? Yeah? Is that a proof of a cause? Oh, right. Well, guess what? There's an explanation. They gave me a tour of the bank vault because I asked if I could have a look. I was interested. So I left my fingerprint on the door. It's not me that's the cause. But yet science does establish cause. So if you want to say in a courtroom that I'm a forensic scientist, the jury will immediately think, oh, wow, this guy establishes cause. No, it's just useful to make it seem that way, as you've detailed a moment ago. To make it seem like you've got a cause. No, that's not what forensic science does, because it's not science.
Your example is retarded because no one in a courtroom is going to argue that your fingerprint caused you to commit the robbery or is the proof that you are the cause of the robbery.
Yeah, they will just exactly that.
They will use your fingerprint to prove that you were there.
Yeah,
that's all that they will establish that you were there.
Yeah, so they're trying to prove that I was there robbing the bank, P. They're trying to prove me as being there to rob the bank. And they say, look, he was there. His fingerprints were there. He was there. And I go, yeah, I was there. I was just having a look around. And they go, no, you were robbing the bank. We've got the cause. We've got the cause from our fingerprint. We've got the
Mars is
fingerprint to
correct
prove
on
you were
this.
there.
All that forensic science is doing or establishing the fingerprint is that you were in the vicinity. You were there. The rest of the evidence is weighed by the jury to determine whether or not your presence there.
So they established with certitude that I was there, did they,
instrumental
George?
in the robbery.
So they established with certitude that I was there, correct?
Well, yeah, at some point in time,
Oh,
you were
really?
there, obviously.
So
You
it
left that
wasn't.
fingerprint.
So it wasn't my twin brother with identical fingerprints to me then.
There are no identical fingerprints.
Oh, really? So my identical twin doesn't have identical fingerprints to me?
Correct. Twins don't have identical fingerprints.
You sure about that?
Prints
Yes.
be planted.
What was that? The prints could be planted.
Yeah. They could
Well,
be
that's
literally
true.
planted,
I mean,
can't they?
but the thing, yeah. Well,
so George,
if you're gonna
George,
bring it
at
up
this
to a
stage,
jury,
right?
That's the whole idea of
At this
presenting more
stage,
evidence. Is
can we
to
cast
determine
any
whether or not
doubt?
you've been framed, or
George,
that's planted, or you actually were present.
George,
and
it's okay.
that
We're trying to lead you down this path. It doesn't establish a cause, but it might contribute to a probability. Correct?
Okay.
Well, science establishes cause. So if you want to strap science onto your bullshit probability, I'm going to call foul and say no. Using the word science when you're not proving cause, you're establishing a probability. That's a foul. It's not science. Not science. If it was, we'd have a cause.
I'm still not quite seeing where you're headed with this. I mean, we use the term science as an adjective to describe a process of investigation as opposed to just blindly guessing.
And that's the point.
Yeah, science establishes cause, whereas people hijack it when they want probability to seem like a cause.
Okay, I'm still not quite on the same page here. I don't know what you're headed with on this, but
Okay. Well, let me give you the broad strokes. Astrophysicists assert things as being real. They also assert that they are scientists, and they only have step one in the actual scientific method, observe a phenomena. They can do that all day long. But when it comes to establishing the cause of that phenomena, then they hijack the term science to make their cause seem more likely, when in fact they've only got a probability based on observation only, not establishing cause and effect, not manipulation of independent and dependent variables, but guesswork based on observation only. That's not science, but again, hijacked.
Okay, well, that's your opinion on it. That the thing is in science, Nathan, in scientific investigations, what we try to do before we establish that we have demonstrated with a certainty, we go to what we call 5 sigma, that is 5 standard deviations. Once you ascertain something to within that probability, we say it's pretty much a certainty. You can never, ever for certain establish anything with 100% certainty, but we can get pretty damn close by demanding a 5 sigma confidence level in establishing things.
Yeah, that still doesn't establish a cause. That's my point. You're establishing probable, highly likely, very, very highly likely. That's not a cause. That's a high probability or a high likelihood, not a cause. That's what science does. Gives you a cause.
Well, I'm missing something here in previous discussion. I still not quite seeing what all this about cause
let me have
and
a go.
science is all
George.
about, where you're headed.
Let me
Okay,
have a
if
go.
you're going to assert something as real, yeah, it's useful if the thing you strap onto your title or your quasi-experiment has the authority to seem like it's legitimately established something as a cause. Black holes, for example. Now, are they established as real and causally affecting our reality or the reality of anything around us? Well, an astrophysicist would say yes, because we've got 5 standard deviations of probability here, so it's highly likely to be correct. I would say no, because you pseudoscientists haven't applied the scientific method and haven't established that as the cause. You're asserting it to within 5 standard deviations as highly probable. That's not the same thing, but it's useful to make it sound like it's got science on its side, because science does prove things, proves cause.
It's like, you know, when you give an endorsement, if you're, say, a music artist and you endorse somebody else's rendition of your work, if it's been endorsed by the original artist, it adds a lot of credibility to it. But at the end of the day, it's still just a repetition of, right? It's the endorsement of the word science when it's not actually science that's the problem.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!